Welcome in, everyone. It is Monday, November 21st. Happy Thanksgiving week for everyone who's participating. We got Music Carolyn with me. I'm Amani Experience. Carolyn, how are we doing today on this holiday week?
I am great. I'm looking forward to the holiday. I am enjoying LA and all the things that are not extremely cold weather.
Yes, yes, yes,
So
agreed.
things are looking up
Okay,
for
okay.
sure.
I like it. I like it. I like it. The agenda for today is we have a guest. Drew's is with us. We're going to introduce him in a moment. And then we have Carolyn has a track. We're going to play her track after the interview with Drew. Then we're going to review the Grammy nominations, which we'll talk about those, which is always exciting to talk about. And then that'll be our show. After show, we're going to raid into DJ Allier, who's interviewing me. So what's up? I see Holly's in the chat. Make sure we wish Holly happy birthday. She doesn't like the attention, but we're going to make sure we figure out how to celebrate. So happy birthday, Holly.
Happy birthday,
Um,
Holly!
there we go. There we go. Mr. Chrissy's in the building. Alex is in the building. Um, yes. So that's kind of our agenda for the day. Anything that has excited you the past week in the music industry, Carolyn, that you want to share with us real quick? A little buffering going on. Let's see if you still there. You good? Let's see here. Did
I am. Did I miss
Okay.
something?
So I was asking, anything has excited you the past week in the music industry?
Oh wow. So I may be a little different, but what has excited me is seeing Kelly Rowland gather fans at the AMAs regarding Chris Brown and his change in performance. If I'm honest, I do not know the full details as to why he wasn't allowed to perform as he clearly was scheduled to perform.
Mm,
So I just love seeing artists take up for one another and remind everyone we're not perfect and our artistry does not define our personal character and it shouldn't be taken away from us if we have a past or something that has happened in our past that may not be the craziest thing we're not in church or we're not in a place where he's in a pulpit saying he's something that he's not. He's trying to create and perform the artistry that we know him as, and it was nice to see a fellow artist support him in that way.
yeah, awesome. Okay, I have to read up on that. I didn't really hear about that, but we'll have to read up on that. So that's good. Cool. Well, I think it's time. Let's get to our
Yeah.
guest. And usually we'll bring Drew here now. So usually I let the guests introduce themselves. So Drew DeLeon, welcome to This Week in Music on Twitch and other platforms. Give you some applause really quickly. Amazing. I'm so excited to have you with us. Drew has got an extensive career. I just want to read to you some of the jobs that he's had. Director of Digital Marketing at Def Jam, Brands Manager at Beats by Dre, founder of Blank Label Records, Head of Digital Marketing for Alamo Records, President MPR Global Distribution, and you're the co-founder and chief community officer for the Digilogue. So you have been doing and putting in work in this industry. It's so impressive. My first question though is, you started off as a trade analyst for Morgan Stanley. What was the inspiration to make the switch from trades to the music industry?
Yeah, finance. Well, first, Amani, thank you for having me. Carolyn, excited to be here. Well, just for context, I'm first generation Filipino. So I immigrated here. So I think for a lot of immigrant parents or just, parents in general, the course of just education is just always focused on non-creative career paths. So whether it's like finance, business, marketing, and I think for me at the time it was just getting a job that can help kind of pay back my parents back. So, I went to business school. I enjoyed marketing. I was always like a creative person, but right after school it was just like this is probably like the best paying job I would ever get. So the most, the most money I've seen, as a 22-year-old. So I was like, let me just get it. And I just committed myself for like a good 3 years. But I think once I turned 25, it was less about what I wanted to do for my parents, but more so what I wanted to do for myself. Because I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, what is my why? Who am I? And what's going to like determine like my future for the next 10 years? Do I want to pursue this finance career path where I can live a secure life, make my parents happy? But ultimately, you live one life and you have to like, be honest with yourself. And I didn't necessarily know what music was going to be like my next chapter, but I knew I wanted to help people. And, music was my medium. So my first role in music was becoming a music manager. And there's really no handbook in being a manager for artists or DJs, so I had to figure that out. But I'm grateful for my friend kind of bringing me in. He was like, yo, Drew, this is back in 2009. He's like, you know how to write emails? You know how to talk to people? Can you help me out? I was like, sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out. But yeah, it's been a journey. And, over the past 13 years, I've learned so much. And I'm happy to like be on platforms like this to kind of share my story and give back.
Yeah, well, we're excited to hear your story, and we want to kind of know kind of your journey, advice you have. Maybe I'll start with the first question, and then, second question. Then I'll let Carolyn kind of ask, because she's always got the great insight too. You're such an amazing resource for people who are looking for jobs or looking to kind of get into the industry. My students, 3 of my students turned me on to you. Through the Music Industry Club at Cal State University of Fullerton. They raved about you. And then Ari, who's my other co-host that hosts sometimes, Ari Gonzalez, she also shared with you why are you so committed to giving back to the students and to helping people find additional employment within the industry?
Yeah, I think I can really speak from my own experience. I think for a lot of people, there's really no starting point, for music. I think people go in different career paths and they tend to be very nonlinear. And when you think about, looking for jobs in music, I think of like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like, the way I envision it is like a giant Costco. Like there's so many aisles, you don't even know where to go. So we wanted to make it really easy for aspiring young professionals and students to really go to a community where, one, they felt welcomed, but 2, to find job resources. And it's not just about getting, because anyone can just have a job board, but we wanted to like really guide these students through their process, right? So, we post different roles, because I think for the average person, when you think of music, for a music job, they may think of an A&R or like a music manager, but there's so many roles. Like you can love data and be like an A&R researcher or like a data analyst. You can love, being able to pair music with scenes or like go into like supervision. Like we don't know these things unless you actually present it. And we just wanted to give this full menu of roles and jobs in one place.
Interesting. Over to you, Carolyn. Go ahead, Carolyn.
I am getting a little bit of in and out sound, but we're gonna try to roll with it.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to ask.
Ooh.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, keep going. Go ahead, ask. Go ahead.
Amani, can you hear me well?
Yeah. It's
okay, great. I wanted to ask this idea that you wanted to switch from doing what your parents wanted you to do into what you wanted to do. What was that conversation like with yourself? And then what was that conversation like with you, or was it even a conversation? I bring this up because I am enamored with the idea of quitting and the fact that we shun quitting, but then we're constantly telling people to find new things to do or to change or to transform. And the only way we do that is if we have to let something go, right? We have to quit something, and we have to have the tools and the confidence to have these hard conversations. So if you want to broach that, I hope it'll be of support for those who are also using Digilogue to find different ways in the industry to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it starts with you first. And I think if you have that feeling in your heart, where in your spirit, and it's that itch, that you feel in your emotions, and your emotions are always going to tell the truth. Whether you think logically, your emotions will be like, your logic will say yes, but your emotions will say no. So I think you got to pay attention to the truth of like how you feel. And part of that is being able to understand what that transition looks like, because I'll be honest, I didn't necessarily plan to just like go into music or figure out like what my next career path would be. I had to like discover it and like experience it myself. So when I go back, I wouldn't change anything because I wouldn't have experienced what I've experienced now. But I think for anyone looking to pivot, I think it's important to figure out how to like inch your way forward to that next destination. Not making like a hard pivot where you're just like literally leaving a stream of income and moving to something that is, can change the circumstances of your living situation. Because I'll be honest, like I definitely had to change my lifestyle. Like, I go from working in finance to like making far less than I did at that time. And, that goes from like living in the city to like having to move back home, changing my set of friends and changing the way I spent money. But it humbled me. And it also allowed me to appreciate what's the most important thing. And it wasn't necessarily the material things around me. It was really about my truth, obviously like my family. And I'll be honest, like the conversation with my parents wasn't easy. It took a while for them to really understand what I did. I just remember during holidays, especially because, I come from a competitive group of siblings. So, so it's like me being the oldest, like not necessarily understanding like where my career was going was definitely like discouraging, because you have my sister who's like a nurse, and then they go to me and they're like, well, he's kind of working on the
Yeah.
so so but it came to a point where the biggest part of your perseverance is believing in yourself. And that's easy to say, but you have to like have those conversations. You got to be your biggest cheerleader. And the moments when you feel like you're down, you also have to align yourself with people that see your value, because your environment is really important, right? Because if your group of people don't see your vision, then they're not meant for you. So you got to like move out, because your environment is going to dictate the way you think. And I was always like, I'd rather be the black sheep, the person that's like thinking the opposite, knowing that things will like pan out, because I just loved it. I loved music. I loved being in the studio with artists. I didn't necessarily know what it was going to be, but I knew I had my, I think my why was really just to empower artists. And that's like looking yourself in the mirror every day, regardless of what I had in my bank account. I was like, I love doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. When was it, once you made the switch, when you realized that you were on the right path and that this could be something that you could really maintain and continue to stay in the industry? Because you've been in the industry for, 15, almost 20 years now. So you're doing something right. When were you like, okay, I'm in the right place and let's keep pushing forward?
Yeah. Well, I think for the first 5 years was probably the hardest years, because I needed to figure out like what my position was in terms of how I could add value to the music economy. I found that, through digital marketing, and given that the first, from 2009 to 2015, like social media was fairly brand new for artists. And, this is like we talk about Twitter now, but like this is when Twitter was fairly new. Instagram, it's not what we think of social media today. And, I was helping artists to figure out how to tell their stories through these new mediums. And I think that allowed me to add value, because I was just like a storyteller. Like I learned how to like really brand artists to like position themselves differently than just beyond their music. So that was really where I added value and found my niche. So, when the opportunity did come, and I became, still enamored in the community, but I was 33 when I got my first big break, and someone from Def Jam found me through my works at the Digilogue, because I started Digilogue in 2016, and was like, "Hey, love your branding, love what you're doing with the community. When you come into office." We had a conversation. Didn't necessarily know what it was going to be about. I thought they just wanted to be part of the Digilogue community, but he was actually interviewing me. And 6 months later, there was a role open, and he hired me as a consultant for digital marketing. And I was like, didn't expect this, but I think all the years leading into it, I took all my experiences and just went for it. And I'll be honest, the first 2-3 months was intimidating, because you walk in these rooms with all these like artists and these names, and you experience imposter syndrome, because you're like, should I be here? Why am I here? But I always go back to like my work ethic, and I was the first person in, the last person out, and I knew if I outworked and just kind of just did what I do every day, like whether it's the projects, whether it's just having a relationship with the artists, I would stand out. And my point is like, it's never too late to really fully embrace music as a full-time gig. For some, you might have to do certain things during the day just to pay the bills, but when things did happen, things accelerated, and it's just being ready for that opportunity.
Interesting. When you talk about your first big break, you did the consulting project and worked with Def Jam, and then from there, how were additional brands and like partners able to find you? What was the key to you kind of continuing on with the line of work that you were doing?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing, what I learned, is that your job is not going to define you, right? Because I thought that me working at Def Jam was the definition of like, I made it. I'm like, no, actually, the work that I was doing with artists independently through the Digilogue is what really cultivated the relationships that I had. And I think that's really important, like what you do outside of your job, because if you're really entrenched in the community, the relationships that you build over time are the ones that you can call favors for, whether it's like, hey, I got this artist, I want to, join this podcast, Amani. Like you build relationships with people like you can make literally texts and calls with, that you come up with, right? So I was less focused on like trying to like climb this corporate ladder. I wanted to make an impact and break artists there, but my job was really outside the building and just making sure I was building this community through the Digilogue, and building genuine relationships with artists, young professionals, and just being entrenched, because music is a lifestyle. It just it doesn't stop when you leave the building. Like I just talk about it all the time, outside of like Thanksgiving. Just yeah. So
okay. Interesting. And then you spoke about, and then we'll get back to Carolyn. Welcome back. I see we're working through our computer issues.
Hey,
Carolyn. You spoke about imposter syndrome. How did you get through that? And what advice do you give younger executives who are going into a situation where they might feel the same way?
Yeah, I think imposter syndrome, everyone deals with it, right? And I think it's important to like really look into yourself, removing all the distractions, right? Whether it's social media, sometimes deleting yourself off the app. But you also have to ask yourself, like, are you putting in the work? Are you putting in the effort? Because that's the way I really overcame that. Because I knew if I was doing all the right things to put myself in that position, whether it's being over prepared for meetings, doing the most for the artists. And that was like, oh yeah, my work is gonna outspeak, my reservations of like who I think I can be, and that just reminded me of like that I belong there. You gotta just put the effort in. I think that was really important for me to like recognize. Like I said, I was the first one in, the last one out. And mind you, I'm not going to be the smartest person in the room, but I'll outwork you. And I think that's something that I was confident about.
Amen. Yeah. Over to you, Carolyn.
That's good. Yes, thank you for welcoming me back. We're working on this thing, but I'm glad to be back. You briefly talked about creating genuine relationships in this very beautiful music industry. Talk about what genuine means in the context of the business. Relationships are so important. It's all about who you know. You'll likely meet people, stop talking to them, and then running to them again if you stay in the industry. What makes a business relationship in this industry genuine?
Yeah, I think there's levels to relationships, and I think you got to be honest with yourself, right? Everyone that you work with are not your friends, and that's fine. Like, they're business relationships, but they can be genuine ones. So I want to like really separate the difference. They can be genuine business relationships where when you do business, you follow up, you check in, um, but you're not hanging out with these people um, as if you were hanging out with your friends, right? Yes, I'm very grateful that I have a lot of friends that work in music, but I know the ones that check in with me on more on a personal basis. They're like, Drew, let's not talk business. Like, how are you? How's the family? You know, those, and that's okay. Like, you have to distinguish the two. And that's something that it took me some time to understand the difference. But once you do that, you can manage like how you stand with everyone. So when you work with somebody on the business side, you know it's a business relationship. So your expectations are very clear. Versus with your friend, you know that you can count on them for certain things, talking non-music stuff, personal stuff, family stuff. And I think that's important to recognize. And each relationship is going to change over time, but I think it's important to like really manage that circle as you navigate the space. I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that regardless of like what level you are, it's just treating people with respect. It doesn't matter like how far you get in your career. I think the people that are coming up are really the future. So the way I look at it, if you can have 10 minutes with them, that's great because it's going to make a huge difference. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. Like, I know that even though I've advanced in my career, I know all these things can be taken away, and I'm very humbled by that. So I always act as if this is the first day, like in my first job, like I don't get too high, on, when it comes to just like achieving things. Like I try to stay present and be like, all right, yeah, let me enjoy the moment, but let's keep working.
Yeah. Love the answer. Shout out to DJ Daz. Thank you for the sub. Happy 26 months. Hello, Songbird. Yes, Carolyn, you have a follow up to that? I think you might have had a follow up, right?
I was asking myself, did I want to? I like to always say that none of us have jobs if we don't have the artists, and we have this weird thing in the industry where artists are seen as the least on the totem pole, right? Maybe they don't know anything, or they need help, or they're going to be a starving musician and all of that. And it's like, no, seriously, we don't have jobs without you. And so there's a certain amount of humility that comes with keeping yourself abreast of new artists. Like you're saying, like making sure that you're meeting new people, those kids, literal kids that are coming up in the industry. Amani, the experience of seeing the fire and the passion in students when they're just starting in the industry, like that keeps you hungry and that keeps you humble. And so it was less of a follow-up question and more of like, I love that you said that, you know what I mean? To make sure that you talk to those who are coming up in the business because they're next. So yeah, I just want to say that.
Okay. While we continue, share with us behind you, there's a 2-time platinum plaque there. Where did that come from? Talk to us about that project and kind of share a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, I've had the privilege to work in do artist development for various artists in different pages of my career. Rod Wave, who is known for his pain music, I'd say trap soul. He's from St. Petersburg, but he sings and raps, and I think for him, the music that he created was so beneficial for people during the pandemic. And I was grateful to work on his project. very shy, introverted, but I was able to like really help his digital presence expand during that time. And I'm very keen on just like working on artists that I believe their core values, like what they talk about, their message, and
Oh, hold on. Let's see here. We just love our
called
little...
Pray for Love, and his other album called Soulfly, which went #1. And I think those are like the projects I'm really passionate about, because the message and like we were working on it during the pandemic, and as a team, and like what we went through just to like try to build and amplify his voice online was very like, trying to figure out the internet during the pandemic every day.
Right.
You're like there's Clubhouse one day, and then you're like trying to do something else, and it's I thought that was a really cool experience. But yeah, I'm very grateful to be part of his story.
You've mentioned Twitter before. You've mentioned Clubhouse. As you look at the social media landscape today, where it stands, where do you feel artists need to have a presence, and then where do you feel like executives such as yourself, Carolyn, myself, who are in the industry working, where should we have a presence?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of conversation around Web3, right? So really democratizing the way that social media has kind of prohibited the way that we view content. So, when you look at like, let's say Instagram, a lot of our content is really based off the algorithm now, right? Our content's suppressed. So my thing is like we're moving to a phase where it's more artist to fan. And that's really like the notion around Web3. So I think it's important to like really build communities, especially outside of like social platforms. So if you have an opportunity to build like a newsletter, that's very direct to fan. I'm a big fan of Discord. I think there's a lot of conversation around Discord, but if you're able to cultivate conversation regularly and consistently and figure out ways where your fans not can only like talk to you but can talk to each other, that's that's gold, because that number of fans can really grow incrementally. I mean, it could start with 5, but the more you add value to that group, the more your fans will really want to be part of it, because fans not only want to support you as an artist, but they also want to build friendships, and they want to be like, oh, I want to go with Amani to the show. Well, Amani's at the Bay, so next time I'm in the Bay, I'm gonna go see the artist because we're part of this Discord. I'm really leaning towards that, so I'm a big fan of Discord and like the newsletter side. I think for artists, I think it's important to really like build your e-commerce. So it's like Shopify. If you're not tapping in to Shopify and understanding how to like, really position yourself as a brand and the things that you're around you as products, that's really important, because that's really like allows you to be sustainable as an artist, as a creative. It literally separates you as from being a hobbyist and actually making money to help support your art. And then for young professionals, I mean, obviously I love LinkedIn. A big fan of LinkedIn, and I think LinkedIn is have embraced, creatives and young professionals and music professionals and just the arts in general. They're doing a better job of it. But the Web3 component, really direct to fan, I feel like, or direct to like member, is where it's at. Like, and trying to find like those spaces where you can talk to your fans regularly. It could be literally a group chat, like a group me, of your top fans. And I think that's where we're going, kind of these niche audiences. And it's not less about critical mass. It's more so about finding loyal members or loyal fans that generally care about what you have to say.
In your opinion, you mentioned Discord, and I really didn't get much exposure. We didn't talk about Discord much until the pandemic hit us, and it kind of has blown up. What's your theory and thoughts on what does it take to create maybe a very successful and successful Discord where people continue to come back and visit on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Like Discord is challenging if you don't have programming on a day to day, and this is even something that we're learning at the Digilogue side, right? But if you do have a Discord, I think it's important to identify like someone that could be like your Discord manager,
Mhm.
or like someone that is like your biggest fan and has organizational skills and can help you just kind of lead the conversation each day. But you need someone to help moderate those things, and I think that's something that we're learning a lot more about, especially as we program and build our Discord on the Digilogue side. But I think for artists, you can incentivize your fans, through special listening events, um,
Mhm.
special codes, um, special Q&As. I think the key part is creating intimacy and that relationship with your fans, where by participating in this Discord, they have a closer relationship with you than just following you on TikTok or following you on Instagram. They actually can hear your voice.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's what made Clubhouse really interesting, because it leveled the playing field about because we were all indoors and we were literally just like talking to each other. It didn't matter who was on the Clubhouse chat, but everyone felt like they were a part of it, and it removed hierarchy. You know.
Are you still on Clubhouse? Then
Mhm.
I'll get to Carolyn for her next question. And if you are, what are some of your favorite rooms? Kind of what's your no more Clubhouse? You said no more for that. Yeah.
Yeah, my honest feedback on Clubhouse is that it opened the door to like everyone, where it made it hard for people that wanted to generally teach and educate, um, versus people that took advantage of it and took advantage of the people that were there. Um, so sometimes you give the keys to the wrong people,
Mm,
and they take advantage of it, and that's what happened. Um, and it put people in a position where like they were scamming artists, scamming people. Um, there was no way to vet
right.
who was who. And obviously, like that's why I like LinkedIn. You could really check, but that's you still have to verify folks. But I think the verification part was really key because you know everyone was claiming to be somebody, and they took advantage of a lot of artists, and I saw it.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. Carolyn, over to you.
I am interested in how either Digilogue or just in general artists can use the digital space to actually create engagement in a real way, either through live performances or meetups or that type of thing. I guess I'm wondering if our brains are too saturated online to truly become fans of people. Does that make
Agreed.
sense? I mean, if
Yeah.
we, I'm assuming, but we came up when we really, if I'm being honest, I'm only a true fan of someone I saw live first. I cannot say that I have followed the career of someone I discovered online and I never saw live. Now that's me, and obviously I'm in an older demographic. But I want to talk about how we actually bridge this gap, right? Um, because what I like to say is your fans are not your followers are not your friends. You're going to have to figure out how to speak to all of them because the audience you have in mind needs all three of them, but they are not one and the same.
Mm,
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And when you think about the live experience, and I look at artists like a Taylor Swift or a Drake or like a Bad Bunny, like just major artists, right? For example, a majority of their revenue, regardless of like how big they are as streaming artists, their revenue streams from touring, just outpaces the way that they stream. So they're making more money from touring than they would make. For example, like Taylor Swift, she makes at least a good 95% of her revenue from touring.
mm,
Um, and that to me says that the idea of like a metaverse in live performance is just like a hybrid version of like what you can experience as an artist, because we want to experience music in person. And I think as let's say a touring musician or like a person person that gigs, as a person that goes to different coffee shops, like this is where you're gonna find true fandom, because they're gonna experience your music live in person. And obviously socials are great just to like make the introductions and keep people like updated. But once you go to a show, it's like the feeling that you go through from that first show, from that artist that you discovered, is like you'll never forget it. And I feel there's nothing that can replace that.
Interesting. You mentioned Taylor Swift, and 90% of her revenue comes from touring. What are your thoughts on how she's re-recording pretty much all 6 of her albums? Do you think that's a trend that more artists will do? I know Ashanti's doing the same thing. What's your thought on kind of that risk that she took that's going to pay off tremendously for, and what's its future in the industry?
I think it's case by case. She is an anomaly, you know. So I think if you have true fandom in the sense of like that she does, but there's a lot of artists that do. They have cult followings, right? So I think like a Brent Faiyaz, Frank Ocean, like they have very cultish fans. Like
Yes.
you could definitely do that. Obviously Beyonce. So I look at the difference between artists that stream really well versus artists that have really cult followings. And those streams doesn't necessarily mean that you have a really cult fan base. And I think about artists to this day, like you can have a viral hit, you can have all these like crazy streams, but like I want to say that you have true fans, unless you're like you have a crazy touring game. But I think Taylor Swift is definitely the case study to see like all the things that they did as a team, from building her narrative, building her fandom, over the past decade. She did all the right things, and those things are paying off, right? From being the most streamed artist from her, most recent release. So.
Okay. I also wanted to ask you about like resources and books. I know you got some books behind you there. Like, what are books about like the music industry that you love, that you feel people should like read right away? That's the first question. Then I have part 2 after this.
About the music industry? Oh, man, let me see. I have a couple of books. Let me see. Oh yeah. So this is a book called The Song Machine for Songwriters.
Okay.
John Seabrook. That's one. There's this book called The Hitman. It just talks about the industries in the 1970s. The way that radio really like monopolized the way that we listen to music, and there was so many things behind the scenes that I won't disclose, but La Payola,
Yeah.
and that was really interesting. But the book I'm reading right now is non-music. It's called The Power of Now. I've heard of it. It's a really good book. Oh, she knows.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Listen, I truly believe most of us only find success in the music industry because we come up with a way to figure out our purpose and how we can create impact, right? How we can serve others. That's really the success. And that's in any industry. Ultimately, you're kind of marked by how you can impact other people. If it's with Drew, it's about how he's able to usher other people into the industry. If it's with me, it's how I can teach people how to choose almost like their niche in sync licensing and like where they want to be and operate in a way that's true to them so that they can be successful, right? Because everybody can't write 20 songs a day, right? And for you, Amani, clearly it's working with students and just being there. And so I think we have to teach not only these books that are about the industry, but books about you. Like you have to know yourself. We are in an industry where we're literally asking people to access our emotions and use them to feel good or to feel bad or to feel some kind of familiarity. If we don't know ourselves, it's going to be very difficult for us to do that. And whether or not I'm an artist or an executive, I need to know that. I need to feel whether or not somebody's being authentic. I need to be able to peg whether or not someone will be able to manage an artist. Like Drew, the fact that you went into management as soon as you got it, I'm like, what? These are things that, you know, people get lost on, but it's like, no, really, you should come into this industry really knowing who you are so that you can know when other people around you are not for you. So anyway, hearing that book, Power of Now, is so good. Master of One is one that it's a Christian book, but Master of One is a really great book for you to literally find your focus, find your niche, find the thing that you think God put you here to do. And again, all respect to those who are not Christian, but this is a Christian book. Where it literally requires you to figure out what that one thing is so you can have a footing and an assurance and a confidence when you go forth and do the thing. That's one of the book. The Power of Moments is actually a really good book too. And it talks about celebrating and like making everything special. And so artists and executives can use that to celebrate artists or for your audience or to make your fans really understand or feel you. So there's just all the psychology stuff that we have to keep tapped into when we're talking about creating fans and being artists, but also knowing ourselves. So yes for the power of now.
Yes. My second question was like resources. What resources do you use consistently to stay up to date with the industry, to kind of follow news, discover artists? Like, what are your favorite resources that you want to share? You don't have to give us all your secrets, but some of your favorite resources.
Yeah, I like Dan Runcie in Trapital. He does a great job of just really putting together, trends on like what's happening in the space. He actually put out an article on like Spotify versus YouTube recently. So he does it in a way where it doesn't go over your head if you don't even work in music. He really simplifies it. So if someone wants to really understand the different trends in the industry, I think Dan Runcie, it's Trapital. It's a free newsletter. You can subscribe to it. I'm a big fan. Outside of that, there's a lot of communities in outside of Digilogue too, which are great. Like Amplify Her Voice is a great organization. I think there's a lot of organizations that focus on different specialties, right? There's Diversify the Stage. They focus on live music. So I just kind of find your tribe, and then once you do that, they're going to be talking about interest in your your focal point. So if you want to like pursue a career in live music, you could follow those pages. And I'm sure, Carolyn, you know a bunch in the sync space and in supervision space. So I feel like there's so many like orgs that support that. And I feel like the only thing that I would want to focus on more for next year is more so resources around like mental health. I think Music Cares does a good job of that, but I really want to find more resources around mental health, wellness, not just for the artists, but just professionals like ourselves. Like, it goes hand in hand. Like, if you're not good on this side, how can you help artists on the other side? So it goes hand in hand. So,
Kellen, you mentioned the Muscle Music app. Kind of tell us about that, and then we'll be respectful of your time, Drew. So, Carolyn, I'll ask one more question. I'll ask one more, and we'll let you kind of be on your way. But tell us about that, and then ask your final question, because I'm curious to know about the Muscle Music app.
So obviously Calm has become a very well-known app, but that's kind of a general app for everyone. But there is the Muscle Music app is really just starting out. I wish I remembered the name of the woman who runs it, but it is an app specifically for the mental health support of artists and creatives. and it allows you to kind of prepare, if you will, your mind for this creativity, but also remind yourself to rest. Remind yourself that grind culture is not a thing, right? Yes, you want to work hard, but you have to have limits, and you have to know what working hard is for you, because we all have different capacity, and what working to death is, because that's a thing, and it's not just the death of the person, right? We try to act like that's far away. It's the death of your artistry. So I'm going to talk or at least mention that, because they say, and she talks about a lot of different things and gives exercises specifically for creatives to rein it in. So Muscle Music app, but also Calm.
Right.
I have a lot of different ones, but exercises, routines, morning meditations, journaling. There's so many things that not only executives, but also creatives can do to just remind ourselves that we're human, that this industry doesn't owe us anything. We bring to it what we can, we give our offering, but we take ourselves back, and we don't lose ourselves in this industry. Because ultimately, at the heart of everything we do should be just being a human and tapping into the source of life. So go ahead, Drew.
No, I was just agreeing with everything that you were saying.
Yeah. My kind of final question would be, if you were going to advise our younger generation of maybe one or two skills that they should work on now to really honing and perfecting, what do you, if they want to succeed and work in the music industry, what kind of skills do you think are most important to develop nowadays?
Yeah, I think the easiest skills are going to be the technical skills, but your soft skills, the way that you're going to be able, I think one, being able to read a room, is gonna is gonna help you, because a lot of people don't know how to read the room, and whether it's meetings, whether it's just like talking about themselves, you gotta just be able to like increase your emotional intelligence and understand how things are working. Where when you're even working with an artist who's tired from like a tour, you don't want to ask them to like create a TikTok video. They've been performing for 12 hours. Like just kind of using that mindset, like, oh no, I have to get this done. Like, no, like my artist needs rest. So being able to like build that, I think also being able to talk about yourself in a way where you can present it with confidence, right? Because sometimes a lot of creatives, they don't know how to like talk about themselves in a way where it can't feel arrogant, but like be able to like talk about what you do and share that. I think that's really important as you kind of build your network, and find common places where like people welcome that, like, hey, I want to learn about you, but you practice how to talk about yourself so you can express yourself. Because I think for a lot of creatives, you're so caught up in your creative bubble, it's hard to talk about what you're working on. Like, you're so consumed about just the product itself. And so like being able to read the room and talking about yourself, I see those common challenges, especially at like networking events, so that's something to work on.
All right. I think, what's the best way for people to keep in touch with you and, kind of follow you? Where should we direct people?
Yeah, I'd love to connect on LinkedIn. If you could share that.
Yeah. Sure.
Obviously, if they follow the Digilogue, for sure. And at the end of the year, I usually do like office hours once a year, and I'm going to be aiming to do that the second week of December. So for the entire week, I'm going to be talking to the community just to like, and I've done this the past couple of years during the pandemic. So just be on the lookout for that. I'm going to post it on LinkedIn, and I'll post my Calendly. So we can do like 30-minute, one-on-ones for anyone that's tuning in.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, on behalf of Caroline and myself, just thank you for your time and your wealth of knowledge. I'm so excited we got a chance to get you in the schedule and talk. So just thank you so much for your time.
I'm grateful. I'm going to check out Muscle Music app.
Yes. Please do.
Yeah, I know it's very early on, but I think it's a good template. There'll always be something that can build on it, on the idea. But I love what she's doing.
Awesome.
No, this is super cool. I'm checking out right now.
Right.
But first of all, super grateful for everyone tuning in. Monty, Carolyn, thank you again for sharing the stage, allowing me to be part of this, and can't wait to connect with anyone that tuned in. But happy holidays.
Yes, absolutely. Happy holidays. Round of applause. One's in the chat right there. Thank you, Drew. We'll let you be on your way. Awesome. All right. That was awesome. Thank you on the chat there. That's how to follow Drew. We'll see you. We're going to listen to your track right here. So do you want to tell us about this track, Carolyn, and we'll put it on and listen to it?
Yes, I call it an offering, a musical offering, a message that's very introspective for me. I can truly say this particular song is very much biographical and definitely a stream of consciousness that I was having. It's called The One. Yeah, let's just listen to it. I don't want to over talk it.
All right, here it is. Music, Carolyn, The One. Give me a 1 in the chat if you can hear, or 2 in the chat if you hear. 2 in the chat if you hear.
If left alone, who would I become? And if I wasn't looking, could I find it on my own? Should I heal and focus on myself? Could I be the love I always wanted? Took some time for me to see that I'm not missing anything. I'm the one that I've been looking for. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one that I've been looking for. I look in the mirror and everything's clear. No one left to blame, 'cause finally I got me. No distractions, so there's no excuses. I give myself what I always wanted. Took some time for me to see that I'm not missing anything. I'm the one that I've been looking for. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one. The one that I've been looking for. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one that I've been looking for. Now I'm free to dream my own dreams. I know the way, 'cause it's just for me. Now I'm brave enough to go where I love. I know the way, it's just for me. 'Cause
All right, put some applause in the chat there. Excellent there. So if y'all didn't know, Carolyn can sing too. So that's Exhibit A right there. She can sing too. Are you open to? I always love to ask, and whenever I interview Babyface or Mariah Carey, I'm going to always ask them about the inspiration for certain songs. Are you open to sharing the inspiration for this song?
I am. So the producer is Jay Deal. If you haven't heard of Jay Deal, he's worked with Janet Jackson, Elton John, Miguel. I could go on, Mary J. Blige. Like, he is iconic, really, from a musical director standpoint, a live touring standpoint, but also an amazing producer and also a professor at USC. But he called me out of the blue one day. We know each other from church, but he called me out of the blue one day. And long story short, he asked me how I was doing and that type of thing. And I told him, I'm not dating. And I really want to figure out, what would happen if I was just alone? Like, if left alone, who would I become? And he said, that's a lyric. And I'm going to sing you some music. And you're going to write a song to that. And that's going to be the first line. And I said, well, all right. Yeah. So that's how this song came about. It literally just was a really authentic conversation of two friends catching up who hadn't seen each other in a very long time. And he was just asking me how I was. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about the dating thing, but I really want to figure out who I am and what would happen if I just try to figure out what I needed and not dealt with that whole thought of, finding the one. I want to be the one. I'm the one. So that's how this came about.
Okay, I like it. Very good. We look forward to more music. So please have more conversations with more producers and tell more lyrics. We can get more. That was good. I'm going to download that. Where can we purchase it?
Everywhere online. Just search Music Carolyn, the one. Music Carolyn, MUSIC, Carolyn, CAROLYN. Obviously, you can go to my website, musiccarolyn.com, and find it. But on all streaming platforms, everywhere, you can find the one.
All right, so I'm just.
I need to put the music video. I do have a music video. I'll give you that.
You got a music
because that was so basically the music video is this day of me time, of self-care time, and that's something I definitely want to promote for anyone who wants to know how Music Carolyn does like a me day. That's what you will see in this video.
Right, we're gonna look for it. We're gonna get the video. We're going to do all that there. Okay, there's a video. I'll put the link in the chat. Now, really quickly, also, Alex or Holly, can you let me know when we see DJ Alier go live? Because that's who we're rating into. So we'll say music video here. Let's chat about the Grammy nominations really quickly. I'm gonna pull them up real quick. I'm gonna share.
Okay.
I'm gonna share.
What surprises did we see?
Yeah, hold on for a minute. Let me see. Where's screen? I think it's screen 2. I'm gonna share this with you. Okay. We're looking at the Grammys here. Let's first go to Album of the Year. Thank you, Holly. We're going to go over that in a minute. Thank you. So Album of the Year, we got ABBA, we got Adele, 30, Bad Bunny, Beyonce, Mary J. Blige, Brandy Carlisle, Coldplay, Kendrick Lamar, Lizzo, Harry Styles. That's a stacked lineup right there. That's a stacked lineup. Yeah. Yeah.
That, I don't know who's going to win. I think, popularity contests will probably catch Beyonce, Kendrick, and Adele. But if you ask me in terms of, this is probably one of the most diverse Album of the Year list I have seen. And when I'm not just talking about genre, but even messaging, this is a very wide swath of musical energy here. I mean, they are all very different albums when you look at them too, right? We don't see two R&B slow albums. We don't see two, these are there's not competition, if you will. It's almost like everybody's in their starting box, but one's a sprinter, one's an 800-meter run. You got a marathon runner in there. Like, all of these are just completely different feels and different strategies musically, and that's a crapshoot right there.
That's a crapshoot. Bad Bunny
I don't
and
know.
Watch
I
Lizard.
don't know.
All right, let's look at a couple more. Let's look at Best New Artist here. You have Anita, Omar Apollo, Lotto,
Okay.
Money Long, Toby Nwege. My students were turning me on to him. All these artists here, like any of these catch your eye?
Yes. I hope it's Money Long. Most people do not know that Priscilla Renee has been literally a child. She was signed as an artist before I got in the industry. So, like, she was on Sony Music when I started. So, maybe at that time, that's 20 years ago, she was signed.
Mhm.
So, to see her as a new artist, it just warms my heart. And I hope she wins because she's literally been someone who's contributed so much to the industry as a
And so
songwriter.
is Priscilla Renee Money Long? That's her name too?
That's when she was younger. That was the artist name that she went by, Priscilla Renee. But now she goes as Money Long.
Interesting.
So she's a new artist as Money Long. But has definitely been, and she's written so many songs for so many artists of all stripes and all genres. That I love that she's Grammy nominated for her song "Hours and Hours," and then as a new artist. I love it. I hope she wins. Go Money!
Okay. All right. And then let's go to Best R&B Album. Let's see what we got here. Hold on.
Okay.
See the Real Mary J. Blige, Chris Brown, Robert Glasper, I Am Lucky Day, and PJ Morton.
I say there are no surprises there.
Yeah.
I don't think there would be anyone we missed. I am a personal fan of Kenyon Dixon and would have liked to see him.
Yeah.
But I think none of these are surprises to me.
Yeah, we will see. We will see Chris
None
Brown,
of them.
PJ Morton. Okay. We'll see that. Best R&B Performance here. You've got Money Long right here, Jasmine Sullivan, Beyonce, Anderson .Paak, Lucky Day. So that's that one right there. Interesting. And then I want to find a category.
Yeah.
There's a category where Babyface and LMA were.
I want to. What might that have been?
I don't know. We'll have to do some research.
I wanted to.
Go ahead.
I wanted to quickly call out, even though it's usually not mentioned as a musical category, but this year was the first year that they split Best Spoken Word Poetry from audiobooks. And so these musical rhymers, if you will, these actual poets who perform their poetry as musical artists, right? These spoken word poetry artists finally got their own category away from audiobooks and other celebrities that in a lot of ways would take that spoken word Grammy from them.
Okay.
They got their own category this year. And I would encourage people to listen to those Grammy nominated spoken word poets because it's full of music, obviously. They are not empty words. These are fully produced albums. They don't call themselves rappers, but the backing of them is live musicians most of the time, or producers working with them, or live instrumentation. And they're very new experiences, or can be new experiences to messaging and music that you may have missed this year. Yeah. So if you want to hear something new, go to that category.
Yeah. Jamie Foxx, I think in this category, Mel Brooks, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Viola Davis, and Questlove. So that kind of talking to what you were saying right there. Okay.
Awesome. Which one was that?
This is the best.
I think, were you in? So in. No, not the audiobook. I was saying the best spoken word poetry album. I wanted to go to that
poetry.
Next one.
Ethelbert Miller, Amanda Gorman, Jamal Warner, Jay Ivey, and Amir Suleiman. I hope I said that right.
Yes. So those are some spoken word poets that you may not be familiar with, but their words have been seared in a lot of our minds this year in different mediums. So just a little tip the hat to them. They have a new category.
Okay. Well, Carolyn, thank you very much for being here with us. We appreciate it. We will see you.
Imani. Thank you
Of course,
for dealing with
it's a
me.
pleasure. We'll fix the internet for next time. Don't worry. We'll see you in December.
I am so prepared. Yes.
And we'll be rating DJ Allier. Thank you, Alex, Holly, Songbird, Misty Christie's here, CC. We have London Michelle. So we're gonna pop into DJ Allier, join the raid. And just thank you. I love our This Week in Music show. We'll be back next Monday too. Let's go over to Allier where I'll be sitting down chatting with him. And then Carolyn, I'll catch up to you real quickly after the raid. So join the raid, everyone. Thank y'all for tuning in. And next week we'll have another good interview, and we'll just keep rolling along. And thanks to Drew for being an amazing guest, teaching us a lot. He helps out a lot with like curating jobs and everything. It's amazing what he's doing. So it's dope. All right, you all. We were going to go over to Ali. I'm going to tell him I'm going to join him in 3 minutes. I'm going to hop in there. Let's go raid. And here we go. Okay, so we're going to go raid there. Let me stop streaming.